Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. I'm talking to myself here. I'm going to be going over the couple of photos I didn't manage to finish last time. So this is part 2 to my previous stream. I'm going to try and put a link in video description to the part 1 where I go through Capture One and how I adjust raw images within Capture One and export them to TIFF files. And then I think I did first 3 photographs in Photoshop, blended them together. So this is going to be part 2. I've got 4 images to go through. And now this one here, if you've watched the previous live stream, I've edited now, but on the show there was a problem where I've disabled audio because I had to cough and then I forgot to put it back on. So half of me editing this photo has disappeared. So I'm basically gonna do that again. So this is the first one we're going to work on. We've got a couple frames here. We've got our lights, luminosity, and then I have 2 other lights layers that we want to probably use in lighten mode. I've also have taken a flash shot with the lights on, just to have these. So this one actually I think is for the kitchen here, and then there's another one. I think this one is actually better. Yeah, I think, to be honest, I don't think we need this one, so I'm just going to drop that one. So we have the kitchen and the standing lamp in the back taken with the flash, just in case. Then we got our ambient layers. This is our bright one, and then the middle exposure, or our main exposure. And after that, I have my window exposure. And then we have flash frames. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move window exposure to the top. We can use that at the end and cut out the view once everything's done. I usually keep the luminosity lights underneath that, and then the darker light layers to use in lighten mode under that. And then after that, I guess we're going to leave the flash frames with lights on here. Or actually, no, let's get our ambient layers and put them on top of that. So the bright and the darker one. And then, yeah, we've got the flash frames. So this is way, way, way more than I would expect on a typical Flambient shoot. So really what I would probably do if you're pressed for time or you're not getting paid much for the photo shoot and you just, you don't want to waste time, just shoot your 1 frame for natural light, shoot 1 flash frame from behind the camera. If the room is big, for example, this one had also ceiling that you can see at the top. There was separation here between kind of 2 areas. So even when I shoot the flash here, part of it blocks the light a little bit. So at the end, near the window, we don't really have much of a light there. So for those situations, you want to get another frame. Let's see. I think, yeah. So 1 kind of maybe on the left-hand side of the room and then 1 on the other. So you can combine these and then your main or the base flash, and that's it. Sometimes you might need to take a window view, but most of the time, if you're if you want to do things fast, then you just expose your flash layers for window view. So try and get the window view that looks good and then shoot it with the flash. The only exception is here we have winter right now. So the problem is that obviously it gets dark very early. So I cannot really shoot with, typically for flash, you want to be the lowest probably at 1/50th, 1/40th maybe on the shutter speed. But because it's getting dark so fast here, like I would need to have it at probably 1/3, 1/6, something like that for the outside being okay. So yeah, I'm combining stuff here. All right, anyway, let's go through these. I've taken more of the frames just so I can go through different situations and how you can actually build a little bit more complicated shots. So let's see which one we want to use as the main. So I think this one. I'm not sure if it's actually well balanced, but anyway, I'm going to reverse the order of the layers. I have a keyboard shortcut for that. And let's combine these two. There's two ways we can do it. We can put it in the lighten mode, but as you can see, there's usually some artifacts you might find in lighten mode, and it might just be a bit problematic. So in this particular situation, we should be totally fine with normal view, and actually that's going to help us create a little bit more depth in the shot because we have a shadow near the fridge here. So I'm just going to, let me just increase the flow because that's 3%. So I'm going to increase the flow to 20. That's Shift plus 2. And I'm going to gently paint it in. You probably actually want to have more of using a bigger brush, really. I tend to have it smaller than really I should. But yeah, that's generally I would suggest having a quite nice big brush. Oops, let's put that back here. All right, anyway, let's move to the next one. We're going to get these done first and then see kind of where we have problems and what we're going to do to deal with them. So I'm adding those shadows here. If you want to have it more kind of geared towards real estate, you probably want to just make the image a little bit flat. I know you might be really hesitant to do something like that, but for real estate, really the agents will want the photograph to be as bright as possible. And a lot of times you'll find they really even love photos that are overexposed. So, you know, that's kind of the way it is, really. Okay, I've quickly cut out the frame here just so I can put the image without the flash hotspot there. I'm just going to remove that. Let's move to the next one. So I've taken this one kind of in the middle of the room just so I can get some shadows on the fridge here, but not as dark. So trying to create a little bit of depth, but not too dark. Right, what do we have next here? Okay, again, if you want, so with this frame, we can actually paint a little bit of the brighter area here, if you feel that it's too dark. Let's look what else. So the ceiling area here, for example, there's a little bit of a hot spot there, so I'm just gonna paint that in. All right, that's pretty decent. I kind of like that frame. I don't know, I like that shadow. It's a little bit softer as well. So the other thing I'm noticing, so I'm going to press Shift and I'm just going to click on some of the masks here. And okay, so I think this one will work. If you notice, if I zoom in here, there's a little bit of a line, shadow line here. And that's coming because I was shooting the flash from around where the camera is, and it basically just generated that shadow there. So I'm looking for a frame that doesn't have that shadow, and it looks like this one actually is the one. So I'm just going to gently paint that in. And this frame is a little too bright at the top. I'm just trying to balance it. Okay, so I think that looks decent. Paint in very gently that light here. I don't want too much of it. It's just so it matches a little bit with our non-flash frames. Same for this one. And if you find that it's a little bit too dark, let's add a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to clip it. So just press and hold Alt and click in between the frames, or otherwise you can use the button here. I'm just going to increase somewhere around the mid tones. So that's already pretty decent. I think what we're going to do, I'm actually going to do all the color adjustments later on. Yeah, I'm just looking which light frame I prefer here. So yeah, that one is fine. So I've just removed the other frame. So if we want, we can put everything in the group here. You can rename it if you're getting lost in your layers. I typically don't do that. And then let's work on the natural light layers. So this is our base exposure here, and I've got the brighter one just to kind of light up the areas in the foreground here, which are darker because they're further away from the window there. There is actually a door kind of behind the camera that has a window as well, but it's not as bright. I think actually the sun was on the side where the window is in front. So I'm just going to add a black mask here. I'm just gently going to paint in a little bit on these sides and maybe where the ceiling at the top here. I usually like a bright ceiling. Okay, so we have the basic blend here of our ambient. So I'm going to add it into a group, call it ambient, and let's change the luminosity mode here. I'm thinking we might swap our light layer and put it above, just so it looks a little bit more natural here. Okay, so the ambient is luminosity blending mode. I'm just going to drop opacity, maybe to around 50%. Looks decent. I'll add curves and clip it. Just actually drop really around mid-low shadow tones, and then increase our brights a little bit so it kind of tapers out here to the regular shape. Okay, that looks decent. So I think before I start messing with the lights, I'll probably want to do my color adjustments. So let's get hue saturation first. I'll call it ceiling, walls. And I'm going to get my color range tool. And let's select anything that's really white in the shot. So the radiator, the table, okay, yeah, we have most of those areas. So I'm going to drop opacity maybe, or the saturation, sorry, to around 50%. I'm going to press Ctrl G, which will add my hue saturation into a group. And let's call it ceiling / walls again. And I'm going to add a black mask on top of that. And this is the fun part where we go around with my polygonal lasso tool and get these areas separated or selected. So we have to be a little bit more careful with the selection here because we've reduced saturation by 50%. So if we cut too much into any of the edges, we're gonna probably see a bit of a weird artifacts when we apply the white mask. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be white or not, really. It's kind of somewhere in between. I think I might just avoid that, to be honest. Okay, it's here. All right, so that's the ceiling. I'm gonna get our radiator here. Oops. And if you're in a hurry, I would just do a more constricted selections. So basically, if you decrease the fuzziness on your color range tool, it's going to have a tighter selection. And do a small adjustments. And then the only thing, if you really want to have a nice image, is maybe select the ceiling and desaturate it a little bit more. And usually for the ceiling, it's a very simple selection process. It's really straight lines. Most of the time, you won't really have much work at all. But here, adding this table obviously is going to take some time. And yeah, I'm just doing that again just because we're doing a little bit of a how-to tutorial here. Nearly there. A couple little places on the bottom here for the leg, just to keep everything even there. And this one here, so I think that's the last one there. Actually, I didn't include the radiator here, so let's just add these. All right. We have the hob here. So that's one. And let's do this radiator here. Not a major thing, but it's good to add. All right, so I'm going to press D to reset my colors. And now my background color is white. So if I press Control and Backspace, oops, let's select our mask. If I press Control Backspace, it's going to fill it with my background color. Okay. I feel like we can go even more than that. Still looks decent at high amount here. And I think I'm going to remove that a little bit. Maybe not fully, but I'm just going to get a brush. And I'm just going to tap 1, 2, maybe, yeah, twice I think is okay. So it's not like completely white. The rest I think looks decent. We have some problems with other colors here. But that definitely looks better. And I'm almost thinking now I want to do the same with the radiator a little bit, is a little bit too much. The ceiling is okay, but the other parts are a little bit too white, so I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so let's create a new layer. I'm going to call it color. Let's change blending mode to color, actually. And get my range tool. I'm just going to select this colored war. I think we had a little bit of a different color there, so maybe the different white balance. Let's drop our fuzziness a little bit so we don't affect too much there. And I'm going to grab the color there, which is a bit more of a correct color. I'm going to gently paint it in. And this side as well. You can always use polygonal lasso tool to kind of block off these areas so we don't go into other ones. All right. So I think that looks already better. Let's block this off. And the radiator. Just enough. And add a little bit more color here. And if I zoom in, we have this kind of weird color here. I think we still have the selection. Yeah, we still saw. I control clicked on our ceiling walls hue saturation, and that selects that mask. And now, while I'm on color, I'm just going to sample the color from the radiator here. I'm just going to paint it in the back so it looks a little bit more even there. I'm thinking we might actually just switch to white. Let's see what happens if we switch it to white, because I still have a little bit too much blue, I think, there. Okay, that's not bad. I'm just going to reverse the selection, Control Shift I, and I think we just need a little bit more color on the edge here. And I'm going to press Control Shift I again, because I've just noticed on the table we have a little bit of a problem there as well. So I'll sample the table color and get the edge colored. Okay, that looks better. Still feeling these cabinets are a little bit out. Okay, and if we want, we can drop the opacity of the color layer. It's interesting if you go to 0, how much difference it makes. If we put it maybe at 50%, I think that looks decent. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay. Let's look at the lights. So I'm just going to get the brighter ones. And there's normally two options, lighten or screen. Lighten, you will find there is a lot of color problems very often. If it's basically if it's too dark, I think it's typically in the areas that are between areas that are super bright and dark, and I think that's what creates this thing. Not 100% on that, but it seems that way. So for example, if I add curves and I clip it to that layer, and then let's increase, you can see we're kind of expanding our colors more correctly, but the edges are not that great. You can kind of counter it as well if you use hue saturation. Let's clip it as well. And I'm going to select, put that hand icon here. If I click on that, I can select the color I want to affect. I think that's going to be in reds. Yeah, but we can start shifting typically the color a little bit towards other colors. In this case, not making much difference here. Yeah, it doesn't always work. That's why I typically avoid if I have these type of problems. But anyway, if you add your curves and it's basically getting kind of the colors a little bit more correctly, you can then kind of just paint in the areas that you want, where you just take a very soft brush and you can start painting it in. But anyway, in this situation, let's actually delete this layer mask, remove the curves. I think we're going to have much better results if we put screen mode. So it already looks way more natural. If we just look at the light, obviously this affects pretty much the whole image. So we get color cast and everything becomes a little bit brighter. So typically what I'll do is I'll add curves and I'll do reverse what I would do on lighten layers. So I'm just going to actually drop our midtones. So now it's already becoming much, much better. It's being removed from brighter areas. So the effect remains only in those brighter spots. So that's where the lights are. So that's already helping us quite a bit. So we just need to find where we kind of like the light. And then what I'm going to do is select my curves and the lights layer. I'll group it and I'll add a black mask. And now I'm just going to paint in the light where I want it. And the same for this one. And if you remember, there was light also here, which is coming from the top light there. But to be honest, I don't think we needed it. Kind of messes things up. Then we have the darker layer with the light. So for that, for example, I can put that in lighten mode. And it actually is giving pretty good results around these areas. I kind of like the saturation on it. So we could, add those areas here as well. I'm going to leave it, but obviously we want to add the ceiling lights on. So let's just add a mask. I'm gonna grab a quick polygonal lasso tool, make a selection around these, and press Control backspace, and we're gonna add our lights. So that already looks good. And then if we want, we can obviously add our flash layer as well and kind of mix these together. So I'm just going to drop, you see it's in normal mode. I'm just dropping the opacity a little bit, and I kind of feel like this looks decent. So now what we can do is get all our lights, put it in one group. We can add a white mask, and then if you want to kind of play around a little bit and remove some of the color, you can, or some of the light areas, you can just paint it with black color. And yeah, that works decent. Next, we have our luminosity layer. So I'm just going to put it in luminosity mode. I'll put it on and off and see if there is anything I actually want to use. And to be honest, I don't think so. I'm going to add curves and just drop the brightness here a little bit. And by turning the layer on and off, I'm just having a look and see, okay, do I like anything here? So the only thing for me is maybe the light here on the fridge. You know, it's coming from the above, so it kind of lights it up here a little bit. So we might look at which exposure kind of would work well. So I'm just basically adjusting my curves, figuring out, you know, what kind of looks decent. And I think somewhere around here is okay. So let's put a black mask on top of that. And then I'm just going to gently add the light into these areas. Just going to remove that shadow. I kind of don't like the shadow, but the rest looks pretty decent. Maybe take this shadow out a little bit. And that's, yeah, that's pretty much done. And you can always go back to your curves and make adjustments where you want to have the light. Yeah, I kind of don't really like that shadow. Of course, it's natural here because it's coming from the lights above and it's creating that. I don't really like it, but right next to it, there's a little shadow as well if I go too far. So I think that's where we need to be here. Okay, that looks decent. Let's have a look at adding curves to the whole image. So just a basic S curve, adding a little bit more contrast. Okay. And yeah, the last thing is the windows here. So let's work on that. And also what I might do is just paint in the clock. Not even actually sure if we need it. Yeah, just using a black brush to decrease the intensity. I don't want to use opacity because I'm going to be using the same layer for my windows, so I'm doing it that way. So I think it's there. It looks fairly natural. It's not too bright, but it also has the color as it would. So let's do windows, and I'm going to start here in the mirror. And just do a quick mask around here. Nothing too crazy. Got my feather set at 0.4. And as usual, I'm using a pen tablet. So for me, I'm super used to the pen. It gives me actually much more control when I'm doing selections like that. The only thing I hate it for is verticals. When I correct verticals in Lightroom using the transform tool. For some reason, it's, yeah, I don't like it. So for that one, I always use mouse. And as you're doing the polygonal or using the polygonal lasso tool, we're pressing shift if we want to add to selection. So let's say I want to add this little bit here, for example, and then I can double click, it will close the path. And then again, plus. And if I'm zoomed in like that, as I get to the edge of the image, visible one, it starts going. Sometimes it's going slow, and you can kind of speed it up if you move it a little bit more. You can also zoom in and zoom out. So if you hold space and use control, you can zoom in. And then if you use alt, it's going to zoom out. So you can do that while using your polygonal lasso tool. And if you press shift, it speeds up the scroll. So you have to be careful though, because it's sometimes like it's way, way, way too fast. All right, so I'm using shift to speed it up, for example. Put the anchor here, go around the window lock, and then the curtains. And then we have the last one here. Let's go this up to here. Okay, that's our window selection. So let's press Control Backspace, fill that with white. And also at the same time, what I'm going to do, I do it pretty much all the time, because very often you have a view in the window. One is in the foreground and one is in the background, and sometimes the foreground very close to the window. So for example, if you have like a balcony, or here we have some plants or trees or bushes, is darker compared to what's in the background, which is typically much brighter. So I usually like to, while I still have this selection, I add the curves adjustment, and it's going to create the curves adjustment with the mask made out of that selection. So now I don't really even need to clip it. That's another option. You could just clip it. So then what I do, I'll raise the brightness and then put that curves group inside, put the curves adjustment inside a new group, and then we'll add a black mask, get my brush, and just gently paint in. So these areas become a little bit brighter. So before and after. The other option is you could use a gradient filter here, a gradient tool. So we could just basically, we need to be, let's switch the other way. Use something like that as well. Okay, I think we are pretty much there. Need to have a look if there's anything else, like any sensor dust, anything we need to fix. You can always quickly go around. There's little bits usually here and there. So let's add fixes. And again, really, I probably wouldn't really bother with fixing with these, but that's what I would do if it needs any fixing. Make a separate layer for that. I am a big proponent of non-destructive editing. So I usually don't merge anything unless I need to, just so I can always go back and change the layers. So for example, instead of color range and hue saturation, I used to use a lot replace color. If you go to image adjustment, replace color, but for that it only works on the current layer. So the problem is that you have to merge things, and sometimes you'll merge something, you start making another adjustments to it, add curves, whatever, And then you come to find out when you zoom in fixing stuff, there's like, oh, like you find yourself actually somewhere in the photo. You've got your foot maybe in the photo or something, and now you need to remove it, and you have to undo that frame, go back. And so it can be a mess. That's why I really like, as much as possible, non-destructive editing. I'm still looking here at colors and things like that, so we might do a couple little adjustments. So for example, here we have a little bit of cyan, I think, or green. So I'm going to go around that, make a selection. And see, it's I'm not going to bother too much with like crazy changes here. Just sample the color here and just gently tap that in. I think maybe here as well. Okay, so I think I like that better. What now? So this probably we could fix later on in Lightroom, but you could also get your color. Let's increase flow. You could use basically the color blending mode and kind of fix it that way as well. So it definitely, it's not fully out of there yet, but almost. I think we have some other stuff that's happening on top. I wonder if we just move this. Whoops, let's move that color just below fixes. Let's go back here and see if there's any weird changes. Not really, so that's fine. Okay, that opacity is here at 66%, so we won't get rid of it. We will need to get another layer and try that this way. That's too blue. But yeah, I think personally I would probably just fix it later in Lightroom, but since we're already almost there. All right, I actually might drop opacity a little bit because it's super heavy. Okay, the last thing here is we have the shadow underneath radiator. So I'm just going to pick the color and paint it in so it kind of removes that weird discoloration, maybe here where the shadow is. So typically you just want to look at the shadows, where you have the shadows, and see if you have discolorations. You'll get these quite a lot when you're doing Flambients, just because of the difference between where the shadows are on your ambient layer and where they are on your flash layer. So that's always going to cause some problems. So you have to be aware of that and ready to kind of work to fix these issues. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to leave that. It's pretty much done. Okay, let's group everything. I'm going to merge everything into a new layer. This is one of the rare occasions where I would do that. Let's go to Nick Collection. I'm going to use my color effects. And this preset here. It's not like too super heavy, although it still gives a punch, but it's meant to, because I always will go back on the effect by using opacity here. So I can delete this layer, don't need it anymore. And let's just pull back maybe 40%, 50. Yeah, 50 is a little bit punchy. Okay, I'll leave it at 40. And then I'm going to merge this thing again. And let's go to sharpener output from Nick as well. I've got a little preset here. Let's just apply that. And yeah, looks like that is done. So let me save that. And in the meantime, let's move to the next. So this is just a closer frame there. Okay, I'm going to move our window frame to the top. I'm going to try work a little bit faster now. So while I'm on the ambient, I'm just going to use the brighter version to brighten the areas that need a little bit work. Again, if you're creating probably a moody photo, you probably don't really need to worry about it too much. But since this is for a property photography, real estate, we want it to be bright, so have a good brightness throughout the whole image. Let's start working on our flash. So this one here is a little bit bright, but let's see what we can do. Oops, so let's change our flow to a little bit lower, still quite high. Okay, we have the one on the other side. Got myself in the photo there. I'm just removing a little bit of that shadow. Not like too crazy, but I don't want it to be too much. Again, we're just trying to think about getting a pretty good exposure for real estate. Okay, so we've got our lights. I think we're gonna add them maybe later on at the top. Do we need anything from that frame? Probably not. I think I'm just looking at the mirror and I want to check if we have some better frames. So this one actually looks decent. This one we cannot use and this one we can. So let's see. Yeah, I think that will work. And then this one we'll have to remove because there's my flash in there, my strobe. Do we want to use anything from that? Let's see. We have a little bit of a softer kind of shadow here. Again, I'm tempted to add a little bit of that shadow. Let's see. Very gently. All right, let's leave it at that. Okay, next we have our lights, the darker one. So we're gonna just use lighten mode here. And I'm going just to paint it in the ceiling for this one. Then we have the brighter version. So just like with the previous one, I'm going to put it in screen mode, add curves, clip it, drop the mids a little bit. We might need to drop highs a little bit as well. Let's group that, add a black mask, and then we can just paint in this particular area here. Luminosity, lights. I don't think here we really need anything. Yeah, it doesn't affect it that much. Maybe here. I don't know if that adds a little bit of realism to, you know, the light coming from that standing lamp. Again, we might put curves on top and see if we increase. How are we doing? Yeah, we don't really need that. So I'm going to gently try and remove the darker area here. And that's decent. And we have our flash frame for the lights. So it's a little bit darker there. We don't need to add the shadow, we can just leave it, but the light, why not? Actually, I think I prefer without it. Let's see if we add curves, if we can make it a little bit of whites. Yeah, actually, I prefer it without, so I'm just going to delete this one. What is that? Okay, I think that's our ambient, so I need to move it underneath the lights. And let's just drop opacity so we don't bother too much with painting in manually the mask. I'm going to clip curves. Okay. Let's add a white mask, and I'm just going to see if I remove some of that ambient from here so it's a little bit brighter. Okay. Let's cut our windows out. So L for our polygonal lasso tool. There's even my strobe in there. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, this is the most time-consuming part. I kind of made things a little bit more difficult on myself by shooting each frame separately. It's not only that you will lose more time on site for something like that, because obviously you have to shoot your frames with natural light, then shoot the frames with the lights on, and sometimes can be tricky to get to lights because you might be in the room where here I had this type of thing where my camera was placed outside. So I had to go around to put the lights on and off, and it was a bit of a mess. So it actually adds quite a bit of time on site if you're doing that. So again, this is probably just for properties that actually will pay for this type of time spent on site and then at editing. But I do like it because you get so much control. You can make it natural light only. Or if I want, I can make it more of a lights on. And the good thing is I can also control where the lights will appear. So I can switch on certain lights or give it a different intensity. And also I don't have to worry about any reflections that the lights will create. So there's quite a few things that are very, very good pluses of that, but there's a lot of in terms of time spent on site. So as with the previous one, let's add curves. Let's brighten up. Group it. Also Control G. And I've got a keyboard shortcut for adding a black filled mask. And then we're just going to paint in the brighter area. Okay, that's not bad. I think I want more contrast though, so I'm just going to increase towards the brights or the whites. Okay, so that is decent. Control 0 to fit the image in the screen. And now I'm going to have a look and see where we have problems with colors. So on the sides here a little bit, there's a little bit of a discoloration. Obviously the ceiling. The rest is decent, to be honest. Like, to fix other stuff, you know, it's not super necessary, but if we want to have a clean photo, then we just do that. So I'm going to add hue saturation. Again, we can just have a look at yellows. Increase here, and okay, we have a lot. Interestingly enough, we might just drop that in general by 10 to 15, I think. I'll just change it to all, just so I know that we're kind of desaturating everything in terms of the whole image. So we did yellows. Let's have a look at other channels and see what we've got there. Reds, we don't really need to do anything here. Greens, okay, there is a little bit, but we've got the greenery outside, so I don't want to deal with that. We have obviously cyan. I think for the general shot, we're just going to leave it as it is. Maybe let's look at magenta. Okay, we can remove a little bit as well. So for the ceiling, let's create another hue saturation. I'm going to press my keyboard shortcut. Oops, wrong one. My keyboard shortcut for color range. And let's make a selection on the ceiling. And maybe the radiator here. Press OK. And I'm just going to go down to -50 or so. Put it in a group. Add a black mask. We'll make a quick selection around the ceiling. Double click to close the selection. Let's add the radiator here. Missed a little bit of an area there. All right, Alt backspace. So this is desaturated. Let's add a new layer. I'll change it to color mode. Let's name it color. Let's move it out of that group. And again, let's get our color range. Let's do selection around the walls. Okay, let's actually put none here and let's try that again. So I'm going to add my selection here. So I'm selecting those areas where I have a little bit more of a greenish tint. Let's press OK. Now that we've got the selection, I'm just going to sample the color from around here, which is kind of this a little bit more brownish color. Okay, so there's a few areas there that were not fully selected. Okay, this is actually quite strong. Let's go back to the selection. I'm going to take something a little bit less. Let's Still very strong. Let me deselect. Let's remove that and let's try that again. So I'm checking out this little preview here on the bottom to see kind of which areas are selected. Press OK. I'm going to select something a little bit closer. I think that looks better. Okay, we have some shadows here. Don't really think there's much discoloration, so it's not a problem. Even this one here. Let's see. Okay, a little bit. I think we're fine. Let's go back to the ceiling one. Going to drop it by a little bit more and also get our polygonal lasso tool. Let's select the ceiling in the mirror because that's way too bluish. Let's press Alt Backspace, fill that in. Looks like some of the areas were not selected, so I'm just going to paint with white so it gets selected. Let's invert that, get color. I'm just going to copy that color and remove that little bit of a green tint. You'll find quite often actually that mirrors have a little bit of a green tint to them. That's the same color? I think it is. Okay. All right, I think that's it, really. We can probably just leave it like that. Let's group everything, merge to new layer. I'm going to add color effects using the last used filter. So that's color effects. Actually, that's not bad. Let's change to 75, maybe 65%. Okay, 55. Then let's merge that again. Go back to last used filters, and I'm gonna add my Nik sharpener output. That's it. Let's save that, move to the next file. Okay. What's this one here? Okay, that's kitchen. I think I'm missing one photo here. Okay, lights. This is Flash. I think it was for the lights. Okay, here we go. Our ambient. I assume this is the brighter one. Okay, and the darkest one. Okay, the darkest one is really view for the windows. So I'm just going to move it at the top. Just going to hide the brighter one and just paint it in the back where it's a little bit darker. Maybe those areas here on the sides. We've got a vignetting. Okay, put in a group, change blending mode to luminosity. Backroom, we're going to leave it there. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is one frame, which is probably our base. Okay. So leave this one and all right. This lights up the back area here a little bit more. So that's done. Then we have roughly the middle area. We can also use it to kind of tame a little bit of bright light here and also remove that shadow. Painting with a different color there. All right, that really lights up that kitchen there. So I'm just going to gently tap. And that's pretty much similar. I don't think we really need to have that frame here. And then this area here is a little bit brighter. Okay. And then let's change this one to lighten mode. Let's get in there. Okay. I think inside, in terms of colors, that looks decent. So I'm just going to cut around here. Let's add this selection. Just going to gently drop the opacity, nothing too crazy. And we've got our flash frame. So let's actually do hue saturation adjustment here. Let's grab yellows, see, yeah, that's quite strong. I think I'm just going to leave that alone, and yeah, let's use our color range. I'm going to select ceiling. I'm just holding Shift and then going with the selector around and holding left mouse button, I guess. So I think this is what we need here. Yeah, I'm going to drop it fairly, like 80%. Add a mask. After grouping it, let's press L for polygonal lasso tool. Let's go around these areas. I think I can just double click, right? Yeah. Okay, this thing starts around here, so let's do it this way. And even though the lines in theory are straight, sometimes just pay a little bit attention, because if you have super wide angle lens like this 12mm, you might find it that it's not particularly straight line. You can include stuff in, so just be aware of things like that. For the most part, it works fine, and you know, if you cut in a little bit, people won't really notice. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I could do that table, but really it's not necessary. So I've just changed to paint bucket. I've filled it with white. And we have a nasty color here, this kind of cyan green. So I think we're just going to create, we could do two things. We could use hue saturation and then rotate the hue, which could work. Oh, why not? Let's give it a try. I'll call it walls. Press my keyboard shortcut for color range, and I'm going to select those colors. And as you can see, it really made the selection. As I was saying, my lens usually around the edges, they get this discoloration. So that looks correct here. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be here. Yeah, I think we just need to make sure we really narrow the selection down to the very same color and something that's discolorated, because as soon as we start shifting the hue, we're gonna, if we have more stuff selected, it's going to be, oops, let me just take that out of the group. All right, so yeah, it's kind of difficult to get it there. We would need to actually add to selection. Like this part is not moving hue, and the part around here. Just going to fill that with white. Yeah, I mean, there's a little change, but not everything. So this is going to bin. Let's create a new layer, call it color, change blending mode to color, and let's try it again. So let's make the selection just like with the previous one. It's actually added a lot. Let's put localized color clusters just so we deal with this stuff. It is selecting quite a bit. Let's drop the range. Really might have been much faster doing it by hand. Right. Okay, it's not bad. Might need a little bit of a adjustment manually. Okay, for the most part, we have some problems here. Looks like it wasn't selected for our hue saturation. So let's add that. Paint that with white. Okay. Okay, I think color-wise, we're pretty much done here. We've done more than enough to try and balance that. All right, we have luminosity. How much do we want? 50%? Looks decent. Let me paint in hue saturation on this thing here. Okay. Let's add curves, clip it. I'm going to increase the brightness a little bit and the whites. Let's make a selection here. I think I might need a new hue saturation for this. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but let's see. Yeah, that works better. Let's put it inside a group and let's copy this. Oh, let's copy the layer mask. Okay, that is better. I think we need to add this thing here. I'm just going to use the color layer and I'm going to press D and use the white just to gently paint that in. And here as well. Just need to figure out, as I said, that mirror has a little bit of a discoloration as well. So I'm kind of thinking if I think I'm going to match the color of that area here because it is discolorated. I'm gonna match it to kind of the wall color. So it looks a little bit closer. Just starting to see so many. Once you start looking and seeing all the issues, you fix something and now it looks corrected, but something else really starts standing out. That's usually how it goes. So this area here is a little bit, the color is a little bit too strong, so I'm trying to tone it down. I think near the shadow here as well a little bit. So actually I might do it for the whole pillar here. Okay. So we have the lights. I'm going to leave that for the time being in terms of flash. So let's put that in lighten mode, see what we get. Kind of like the light here, so I'm gonna paint that in. I don't think I need the lights that are at the top of that thing. Maybe the light here a little bit. Just going to fade it. And let's drop this one in screen mode. Curves, clip them, drop. Okay, just increase highs a little bit here. And I like what it's doing quite a bit. So let's put it in the group. I'm gonna put the black mask and let's paint in this thing manually. I actually now think we can use this one here. So if I go back to curves and see if we increase a little bit of the mid-tone area. And there's an area here that's, in terms of the color, has a little bit of a trouble. So let's select polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to make selection around here. Close it off. Press D to reset my colors, X to get the white as my foreground color, and just gently paint that in. Let's go back to lights and see if this thing does anything. Not really, so let's leave that. There's the luminosity lights layer. Right, so I'm going to add a little bit of that light around the standing lamp. Maybe around here. And just this one a little bit. Kind of feel looks pretty decent. And what we might need to do a little bit is just to increase that luminosity layer a little bit. Yeah, a tiny, tiny bit. If we notice those, shadow areas, might paint it out a little bit. Okay. So that's lights. Let's have a look at our flash frames for the lights and see if there's something we want to use. Let's put it in lighten and see. Nah, I think really or if we change it to luminosity. No, I don't need these. All right, time to do the favorite job of cutting stuff out. Okay, let's just go around all of them like that. And then let's subtract by pressing Alt. this one, the door handle, and this one here. All right. Now press Shift to add to selection. I'm gonna add the top window. Oops, I accidentally closed the loop. And similar with this one. Let's subtract. Same here. And the door handle. All right, Control backspace. Let's fill that in. And yeah, I think let's add the curves. But to be honest, the exposure is quite okay. Actually, I like it that way here. So I might go kind of like overboard in a way. But I like, you know, for the doors in the bedroom there, it looks decent. This one is a little bit too bright. So I'm just going to add it to the group, add a white mask, and then I'm just going to paint black to kind of subtract it a little bit to get a little bit of more of a view there. All right, I think we need another color layer to fix a couple of little things here. So that lighten layer, I think, created a little bit of a color problems. So I'm just sampling the color and painting it in where it kind of made a little bit of a discoloration. So the shadow here as well, you know, it's discolored, so that has to be fixed. And I think that's all right. Anything else that's like a very glaring issue? I don't really think so. I would say all looks pretty decent. We forgot to add the lights in the mirror, so we just go back to the correct layer and paint them in. What about this? Is, I think that's the one in, okay, that's the screen mode. I don't really need that, but maybe the luminosity. Yeah, let's add this kind of light here a little bit. And the good thing is as well, I'm not painting it at like 100%. I'm just tapping it lightly, so I can really select how much of that light is visible. So it gives a nice accent. It's not too distracting and it's not too bright. I think the areas outside look quite good in terms of exposure. It's a little bit overexposed, but that's what you would expect, really. Looking out the window, it will be much brighter. So, okay, let me just rename it to color, just so we know. Let's make a new layer, call it fixes. And I'm going to start with remove tool. For me, that's usually the best one to start with. Make small selections because it's much better at fixing kind of small areas. If you give it something too complicated, it might just mess things up. But small areas like that should be okay. There's not much particular detail in that area, so it's kind of difficult even to say if it's done good or bad job. So even from this, you probably wouldn't really see much. Let's go out and see. Looking at it, you don't see the camera. Even if you zoom in now, it looks decent. Let me remove that little bit because it looks like it's basically cloned from here. Okay. Looks like we have all we need. Let's merge everything and add our color effects. Quite strong here. Let's drop it to 40%. Oops. That didn't work. Okay. And let's merge it again. I'm going to put our sharpener output on top. Okay, let's save that. And let's go to this one here. So this one we really don't need to do much, and really if we're thinking natural light, we could really just use those two and make a little bit of color adjustments here. So let's hide the brighter layer, and the kind of outside areas are kind of lit quite well, but the main kitchen is kind of lacking. So I'm just going to use the brighter layer to paint in using the soft brush very roughly around here. So let's rename it to ambient and put it as luminosity. This one was taken to light up this area there with the door, and I guess this was behind the camera. We're kind of missing a little bit the white balance, but we'll have to work with what we have right now. So I took a couple different frames, so we can remove the hotspot from the center area here. Maybe a little bit from that fridge. It's a further removal. Let's press Shift and click on the mask and see if there's anything else we want to. I think we're fine like that. Okay, I think this was just shoot through umbrella going basically from left to right. There's something I like about that light. It looks pretty neat. Let's change it to lighten mode and try and paint just in that area there. Just gently tapping. All right, let's change that to lighten as well. How about screen? Maybe the curves. Let's hide. Just do like a very rough pass. Okay. At least the ceiling doesn't have the cast. If you look, just because I was doing shoot through umbrella, so it was just, giving the white, pure white light coming out of the light through the umbrella. So there's no color cast on the ceiling because the light was hitting it directly, whereas here, shooting the strobe into the ceiling, you know, picks up all the colors from the walls, from the flooring, and then it all goes into those white areas and discolors them. So that's kind of, sometimes what I like to do is actually for the ceiling, what I'll do is I'll put my strobe on the floor with the umbrella, and I'll set it to like a fairly low setting and shoot it directly at the ceiling. And usually I'll do it in two areas, maybe one at the back of the room and one more closer to the front, and then combine those two areas, because sometimes you'll get a hot spot where the strobe is, you know, directly underneath, but the other areas will look quite nice. So then I combine those two, and then you don't really need to deal much with color correction of the ceiling. But you know, it requires extra work on site, and to be honest, desaturating the ceiling is not a bad, or not like too difficult. So I think in this situation we really don't need it. I kind of like the light here, but I don't want to distract. So let's remove that frame, put that in the group, add hue saturation. Let's make a selection. I'm just going to enable my quick mask preview here. All right, let's increase fuzziness here a little bit. Otherwise, we'll be selecting for the whole editing time. So really here, I'm just interested really in the ceiling. These are white. Maybe that stonework in the kitchen top. And I think we are pretty much there. Yeah, let's press OK. Let's drop our saturation down. 50, 60 seems good. Let's add a mask. As usual, a little bit of cutting out. You can also use Enter key to close off the loop on your selection. Alrightio. I think I forgot to add this one to selection, so we might need to go back in a little bit to our hue saturation and add it manually there. We'll see how it performs. All right, let's press Alt backspace. Before and after. So it is decent, but yeah, that hob, I'm pretty sure, is a little bit bluish. So I'm going to get a black brush big enough to cover the whole thing, and I'll just tap once, tap second time, tap third time, and you know, at least it stands out here now. Okay, that's our color correction from hue saturation. Let's create a new layer, call it color, change blending mode to color, and let's just grab, I'm just clicking control in that selection. I'm just going to invert it just to add a little bit of kind of border bounding box around, and you know, it's pretty decent. The color is pretty even everywhere. Just that right side of the image was a little bit off. So that's without the color correction, and that's with the color correction. And we can just drop opacity actually a little bit, because it seems a little bit on the stronger side. So now that we're mixing these two, it gives us pretty good result. Let's get our ambient on top, and even at 100% it looks fairly decent. But let's just keep to 50. Add curves, clip it to our ambient. Do a little bit of an S shape curve. So I have this area here which is a little bit hot. There's a little bit of loss in color because it's bright over there. So I'm gonna go down to my group for the flash, press Shift, and I'm just gonna see if we have a frame that would kind of fix that. So maybe this one, just slightly. It's not. How about the super dark frame? All right, unfortunately this is what we get. We could try getting the color and at least doing a little bit of color, so that's going to mask that bright area a little bit more. And while we're on the color layer, let's get a selection of the color from the skirting board here and just fix that shadow. All right, good here. Okay, we've got lights. Let's first start with our layer here. And what do we prefer? Let's just do lighten. But let's duplicate that layer. So let's add a black mask. And I'm going to paint in the ceiling lights. But for kitchen lights, I'm just going to change to screen mode. Let's add curves. Clip it. We don't really need to drop much of the... Okay, let's increase kind of whites there. And this one just slightly lower, around mid-tones, but not too much. Let's put all of that inside a group. Let's add a black mask, and now we can manually add those lights. And then finally we have our luminosity. So I think we might add a little bit of the color from the lights here, not like crazy, but a little. And then let's use luminosity So let's change the flow maybe to 10% and see if I do one. Okay, that looks decent enough, I think. Let's see if we put that on top and change it to color. No. Yeah, we don't need that layer, so I'm just gonna bin it. And let's select everything, merge everything into a new layer, and use our Nik color effects. All right, that's fairly strong. Let's keep it at 50. Yeah, I'm just thinking about that color, and I think I'm gonna remove it. I kind of don't dig it too much. I think we can leave the luminosity, but the color is not that great. Maybe even from these areas a little bit. Okay. Let's merge that again, and let's add color effects. So probably 50% here. Let's merge that again. Let's add sharpener. All right, time to save. And let me have a look if I can find, I think I had another photo from that photo shoot, so let's see if I can find it quickly. All right, I think I found it. Let me see if I can put it in the stack. All right, so we have the kitchen, bedroom, and the kind of a garden terrace area photo here. Let's use the bright layer, natural light layer, to lighten up the kitchen here. Good. Let's put it in luminosity. I'm going to put this is for our windows, so don't need that. And we've got our flash. Okay, so luminosity lights, regular lights. So let's put that at the top. We don't really need those frames for lights taken with the flash. That's the back area there. Just gonna put it on lighten mode. Let's drop opacity maybe to 75% or so. And let's see. So I guess this is our base frame. Just paint here, remove that shadow. Okay, we might use it just here to gently tame that hot spot there. And this is for the door here, I guess. Is it any better? Doesn't really make a difference. And then we have that room, so just on the edges of this whole thing, just gonna remove that. Oops, that was the wrong layer. So the white mask, and then just gently remove that. Okay. These ones we can probably skip. So let's add hue saturation. In all honesty, to be honest, it doesn't look bad. So like we don't really need to do that. Let's see, maybe 50% blend. How are we looking? We're looking not bad, but I think we need to use curves and decrease a little bit of the exposure, maybe raise our whites just a tiny bit. Okay, little difference. Let's put that in lighten mode. I'm just going to paint around the edges just to remove those kind of discolorated red areas. And let's duplicate that. I'm gonna delete layer mask, change the mode to screen. Let's add curves and see what we can do here. Not even 100% sure if we need that. It adds a little bit of kind of this luminosity. Right, let's put this one in the luminosity mode. For the time being, let's just add it on. I think we're gonna have to increase a little bit the exposure potentially. Actually, that looks decent enough. Okay. Let's do that. And Now let's add let me get rid of these layers, we don't need them. Let's change this one to color, change blending mode to color. And I'm going to kind of separate this area here. Okay, let me just tame that color so it's not so crazy. Yeah, there's a little bit of discoloration on this thing, but it's, to be honest, I think it's looking pretty decent. It looks more natural. So I'm going to leave it, and time to cut out the windows. Oops. And the door handle as well. I think we're there. I just might have gone into... Okay, let's paste it in Alt and Backspace. Control D to deselect for a moment. Yeah, I think from this kind of distance looks okay. The only thing is the door handle here. So let's maybe fix that. But apart from that, oops. And let's add curves. To be honest, I think we look decent there. Oops, I moved that thing. Maybe increase a little bit. It's kind of overblown, but at least it looks more natural. And I've just noticed we have shadow here that needs fixing. All right. Maybe a little bit on the cabinets as well. I'm just doing very rough painting in. Just going to use eraser to remove that color from those handles for the cabinets. And I think I'm going to use that frame here to remove those shadows under the handles, because it's a little bit annoying for me, even though it is kind of realistic. And on top of that, we remove that darkening around there, so we're a little bit more balanced there. And okay, that looks decent enough. Let's blend, or let's merge everything, get our color effects. That is kind of crazy. Yeah, there's a little bit of a discoloration here. So the question is, do we want to, in terms of contrast, let's see where we are. Maybe something around here. Let me just add the color layer. I'm just going to sample the color here and just do a very rough paint in here. I think there might be some discoloration coming from that lighten mode layer, which might have gotten a little bit onto the outside area. Okay, I think that looks better. So let's merge that again and add our sharpener output. All right, let's save that. Let's see. I think I also might need to open the other ones I did. To add a little bit of Nick color effects and sharpening, I think. Let me just try and get these files opened. Okay, this one had the color effects, but it didn't have sharpening. So let's, just to match everything with the other ones we did just now, I'm going to add that sharpening. So let's save that. I think this one's a little bit much. Let me drop that. Maybe to, let's do 50. Okay, we'll have to save all these files, and I'm using the zip compression because I do like to keep these files with all the layers, just so I can make changes if necessary, and it does happen once in a while. So just fixing the color here, because we're doing our very rough fixing of stuff, and we've actually broken stuff. Okay, decent enough. Alright, just waiting for those files to save. We're gonna have to pop into Lightroom to get our final adjustments, get the verticals corrected. Yeah, these files have quite a bit of layers. It's not very typical for regular real estate shoots. We made one save there, it's okay. right, I'm back. I should have probably told you that I went to bathroom in the meantime. So looks like this has saved. We might, let me see if I can get these back into Lightroom. All right. Need to put it in the window here. All right, so we have our photos here. Let me just change onto mouse. Let's do some basic adjustments. So gonna add a little bit of contrast. Pull down our highlights a little bit. Add some shadows. Just holding Alt and looking at the whites. So I'm not bothered about the outside area being overblown. That actually is probably much, much better. And then just dropping blacks. That looks decent. Maybe let's look if we need clarity. I think, no, not for this. Apart from that, I think we really don't need to do much more here. I'm just going to press Shift and sync everything between the photographs. And let's look. Might just drop a little bit of the clarity here. There's a little bit of that mid-tone mud, especially around the standing lamp. Okay. Most of them look good. Yeah, I think that's all pretty much done in terms of the final adjustments on the lighting. So last thing, Shift plus T, so we can do our transformations manually. Gonna have to use this frame here. I'm not sure about that cabinet. It seems like one part is kind of under at an angle. So I think I am just going to use the wall here to align it. Usually we want, yeah, that thing really makes it look totally off. So okay, let me have a quick check if we're gonna align against that one, if we're gonna get a result that looks better. Yeah, that does look better. So I'm just gonna leave it at that here. So I think I'm gonna use that thing again. So starting with verticals first, I'm gonna use maybe the window frame here. Okay, so for the bottom, maybe we could use that. Not entirely sure if I can go through it. I just don't know if this is aligned correctly. I think it might be a little bit off. Okay, for the top, I know the lights were basically aligned in the same line, so I'll use that. And then maybe this line here around the ceiling. Just feels like something is off a little bit, so let's try this one. Yeah, I think that's better. Let's leave it there. Here I'm just going to use this line here. Maybe radiator. Oops, undo. Not much change, but a little bit. Let's go with this one. So I guess we could either use the radiator or that part of the fireplace. And I have a feeling the radiator is not 100% straight. I think it's got a little bit of a curve to it. Very, very slight. So I'm just going to avoid it for the time being. See if we can work off of that area here. Okay. Then I guess we're gonna use the fridge. The question is from where. Maybe I'll use this line. Okay, that's vertical lines, horizontal, so we have that little thing separating kitchen from the living room area. What do we do here? We don't really have anything that goes through. Sometimes you can look at the floor if it's done correctly and kind of align the lines, but here they're just all over the place. I think I'll have to work either off of the radiator or this thing here. And it seems to me like the radiator is going to be definitely more straight. So off and on, small fix, but yeah. Okay, zoomed in version here. I might go for that just because the line is just longer top to bottom rather than the fireplace. And here we have actually the door frame, I think, so that's a pretty good spot. All right, let's align the lights, the ceiling lights, I mean. Again, I think we're just stuck with the radiator. Okay. Then we have that white shot. So this line here is blocked by the light. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. This is like, I think this is a 12 millimeter, I guess. This seems way off. So something's kind of weird looking here. I'm not 100%. Let's see what it does. I think I'll just have to use this fireplace. Yeah, this is something weird. I think there might be a bit of that curtain somewhere around here. I think our next go-to will be door. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not a fan here. I think maybe let's use the fireplace area here. Still looks off to me. I don't know what it is. Okay, yeah, that looks better. Let's leave it there. Okay. This one here, let me just see if I can increase the whites here a little bit. Okay, let's just go with the kitchen here, because kind of the center of the photograph is kitchen, so I want the kitchen to be straight. So let's use the top. And this one here, all right. All right. So we have our photos here finished. And that's it. All right. Thank you for checking out. And I'll see you in the next one. I'll be doing these live editing sessions. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. Plan probably one for real estate, kind of once a week, and one kind of interior design editing, something like that. But I'll have to figure it out. In any case, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.